Well, good morning and welcome to Fox 29 News Now on this Wednesday morning. It is February the 13th, just a day before Valentine's Day, and it is beautiful skies right now. It has been warming up. We don't see any more rain or snow, so I'm sure all of you are happy. This is a look at Old City, Philadelphia, where it is currently 42 degrees. I'll run you through some slides of the weather just so you can take a look. First up, we'll have our Doppler radar. And here's a look at some current temperatures in the area and the region. Throughout the northeast U.S. and throughout the nation. So tomorrow will be even warmer at 47 degrees and a low of 28. Friday it'll get back to a little damp and cloudy, and this weekend we'll again see a wintry mix, but here's to hoping we don't. I'm going to start out with some national news this morning. The possibility of another government shutdown is now all in the hands of President Trump. Friday is the deadline, and there's a potential deal, but it's not clear if the president will sign it. He is reportedly not happy that the deal would only provide a fraction of the border wall funding he was seeking. But if the president does sign the deal, he's suggesting that he will try to find money elsewhere to bolster wall funds, and he has the support from Republicans.
I think he ought to feel free to use whatever tools he can legally use to enhance his effort to secure the border.
I said, Mr. President, this is only a down payment on the wall. I said, they said you weren't going to get any money. We did get you some money.
The answer is no. I'm not. I'm not happy.
The president would need congressional permission to move any funds. That leaves us with the big question, will there be a deal to prevent a partial government shutdown and provide some money for a border wall? Here's Doug Luzader and Fox 29 Good Day with their take.
President Trump. Friday is the deadline, as you know, day after tomorrow, and there's a potential deal on the table. Not clear if the president will sign it. Yesterday he said, yeah, that really doesn't do the trick. He is reportedly not happy that the deal would only provide a fraction of the border wall funding that he was seeking, over $5 billion.
And it's really more fencing instead of the concrete,
Oh, yeah, concrete walls off the table. But if the president doesn't sign this deal, he's suggesting that he will try to find money elsewhere to bolster wall funds. The Peter and Paul thing there. And he does have the support of Republicans, he says, most of them.
I think he ought to feel free to use whatever tools he can legally use to enhance his effort to secure the border.
I said, Mr. President, this is only a down payment on the wall. I said, they said you weren't going to get any money. We did get you some money.
Of course, the president would need congressional permission to move funds around from one department to another. We shall see what happens today.
Yep, the clock is ticking. Mm-hmm. By the end of this.
Here's a look into House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy, House Minority Whip Steve Scalise, and House Republican Conference Chair Liz Cheney, who are holding a press conference on Angel Families. The location is House Triangle, U.S. Capitol.
Areas of our border where our national security experts, the men and women in the Department of Homeland Security who risk their lives to keep us safe, have said they need more tools. They need more barriers. And you can call it what you want, but a physical barrier that keeps the bad people out is what we ultimately need. And let's keep in mind, America is the most generous nation in the world when it comes to immigration. Don't let anybody tell you this is about closing our borders. We let over 1 million people into our country every single year legally. No other country's close. So America will continue to be the most generous nation, but we're also a nation of laws. And we need to get back to that rule of law. And keep in mind, there have been presidents, Democrat and Republican, who promised to secure the border but didn't follow through for various reasons. The time for excuses is over. Donald Trump is not about excuses. Donald Trump is a man of action who wants to follow through on this promise. And it's not just a promise that he made during the campaign. He listened to our experts. He asked our men and women of Border Patrol, of ICE, to tell him what tools they need. And they've done that. And he put a plan together, and he asked Congress to fund it. Nancy Pelosi stood up and she said she doesn't even want ICE. She wants to abolish ICE. Think about this. This is the agency that saved hundreds of children from human trafficking last year alone. Why would she want to get rid of that agency? But that's what's at stake here. And so when I think about this fight, it's very personal for me too, why we're ensuring that we secure our border. I think about the mother of Spencer Chauvin. Spencer Chauvin was a firefighter in the New Orleans area in St. John the Baptist Parish who was just doing his job serving his community one day when an illegal alien killed him, took his life. And Spencer's mom called me a few months ago, and I talked to her. We had a wonderful conversation. She's a wonderful woman. She's an angel mom. And she said, please secure our border. Look, when Nancy Pelosi says she doesn't want to secure the border, I remind her of Spencer Chauvin. There should not be another Spencer Chauvin in America where a life is taken by somebody who's here illegally because our country failed to secure the border. We're backing President Trump because he's doing the right thing to stand up and secure our border, put that physical barrier in place so we can get back to a system of legal immigration where our laws work for all Americans and for everybody who wants to come here to seek the American dream. And now I'd like to bring up our Republican leader, Kevin McCarthy.
Thank you very much. And on behalf of the House of Representatives, I want you to know our prayers and condolences are with all the Angel families. I could not imagine the burden and the pain of losing your child, because it did not have to happen. First, I want to thank you all for the courage to come here, the courage to share, because the message has to go across. The tragic situation, because every person in the House of Representatives has a responsibility. They have a responsibility first to make sure this nation is safe, and that means our border. We have a president that's willing to make that message across this nation and have that fight. Why? You look at the faces who have been lost for those in the past who would not make that challenge. make this commitment to you that we will continue to make the fight happen until we make sure our borders are secure. I have found that there is an opportunity. There's an opportunity to make sure America is safe. We believe in legal immigration. We believe this country is a melting pot. We believe the individuals can come. But that also means our borders need to be secure because individuals, one, have been killed. Two, the human trafficking that comes across, the amount of drugs. These are things that cannot be ignored, that have to be debated in this debate that we're having before Congress today. I asked members on both sides of the aisle, you took an oath to uphold the Constitution. You took an oath to defend this nation. You have a responsibility to secure this nation so there will not be more angel families. And that's our commitment to you, and we will uphold it. Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, I'm going to bring up Rose Tennant. She's a syndicated radio host out of Pennsylvania, and she's going to introduce our other guests.
Thanks, Amy. I think I speak for all of you here. We'd like to thank you, Amy, for your time. You are so selfless in this battle, and you give everyone here a voice that they wouldn't ordinarily have. You're just
About them.
You're such a blessing to all of these people here, and I know they appreciate that so much. Someone who doesn't hold anything back when it comes to border security is someone you've probably seen a lot and heard a lot from, and we appreciate his work. Former director of ICE, Tom Homan. Tom.
Hey, look, I'm glad to be here with Angel Moms and Angel Dads. I deeply respect Mr. Scalise and Meadows and Cheney, but I'm not going to be that nice. I don't call two people out. Senator Menendez this morning says DUI is not a crime. 10,000 people a year die from DUIs, 28 people a day. So if an illegal alien gets arrested with DUI, they shouldn't be regarded as a criminal alien. That is disgusting. And that comes from the man who should be in prison himself. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez wants to abolish ICE. She says ICE doesn't prioritize and they separate families. 9 out of 10 of everybody ICE arrested last year, 9 out of 10, to be exact, 87.6%, had a criminal history or were pending criminal charges when they were found. That's pretty good prioritization. And you can't say, concentrate on only the criminals and not let us in your sanctuary jails. That's just ridiculous. Concentrate on criminals, but don't come into jail where you can find them. House Appropriations Chairman Roboy Allard the other day said, by cutting ICE's beds, we're going to force them to concentrate on criminals and stop arresting law-abiding immigrants. ICE has never arrested a law-abiding immigrant. ICE arrests people in the country illegally in violation of federal law. They're illegal aliens. When you enter this country illegally, you commit a crime. When you get at billions of dollars of taxpayers' expense, you get due process, and a federal judge orders you removed, and you don't leave. That is not law-abiding. If the message the Democrats want to continue to send, it's okay to violate the laws of this country. It's okay to enter this country illegally. As long as you don't commit another crime, it's okay, because I shouldn't be looking for you. If that's the message we're going to send the rest of the world, you're never going to solve the border crisis. It's never going to end. Nancy Pelosi. The other day I was on a show and I was asked about her, and I said I thought she was disgusting. And what she does is disgusting. Let me tell you why. Because the last time I stood at this podium, the angel moms, the angel dads tried to meet with her. She wouldn't meet with them, but she'll meet with illegal aliens. She says her walls are immoral and ineffective, but she has yet to talk to one Border Patrol agent. President Trump, the greatest president in my generation, because he not only does he talk the talk, he walks the walk, who's done more in 2 years than any other president done in 8 when it comes to border security. Even though he's got all this resistance against him, look what he has accomplished. And if they wouldn't resist him, if every Republican and Democrat would believe that this nation's security and sovereignty meant something, I don't care if you're Republican or Democrat. What's the downside in securing the border? What's the downside on less illegal immigration that bankrolls criminal organizations that have killed Border Patrol agents? What's the downside on less drug trafficking in this country? There's no downside in securing our border. It is ridiculous. So I'm here today in support of the men and women that have lost their children to immigrant crime. And let me say here today, I'm not saying every illegal immigrant that comes across that border is a criminal, but I will say this, when they enter the country illegally, they have committed a crime. And all these people that make these fraudulent claims to political asylum, I can't blame anybody for wanting to be a part of the greatest country on earth, but their first two actions when they step foot in this country is to commit two crimes. Entry this country illegally and committing immigration fraud. 91% of Central American families lose their case when they get to court. Less than 2% have left. That's not respecting this country. So unless we all get together and keep supporting this president and what he's trying to do, this president can fix the border. I'm telling you, for over 3 decades, I've seen it can't, push it down the road, push it down the road, push it down the road. We finally have a president that knows how to fix it because he has been to the border. He has talked to Border Patrol agents. He calls me and talks to me. He wants to talk to the people who've done the job for 3-4 decades. What works, what doesn't work. Name another president that's done that. Name one Democrat in this building, in Democratic leadership, whether it's Schumer or Pelosi, or name one that went down there and talked to him. But they rushed down there to demand an investigation in the death of 2 children that crossed the border illegally and died, which is a tragic, tragic story. But while they're down there demanding investigation, the men and women of Border Patrol that did everything they could to save those lives, they never asked them what they thought about this country's security and what they needed down there to get their jobs done. So I'm going to keep fighting. I hope you all keep fighting with us too. And to the angel moms and dads, let's hope that the Democratic leadership actually meets you and hears your story. And maybe they'll understand it's not a manufactured crisis. We're losing this country. Exactly. And with the deal that was announced yesterday, I see some Republicans saying it's a good deal. That's a terrible deal. Terrible deal. Illegal immigration is going up, and they're taking beds down. I don't care how smart you are. That doesn't make sense. All he says 49,000 people in custody. They want to put 42,000. What's that mean? That means releasing 7,000. If you got to average by the end of the year 42,000, you've been at 49,000 first half of the year. Now you got to go 7,000 below, which means you're going to get down 35,000. That's releasing 14,000 people. Where is that? Where does that make sense to anybody? Releasing criminal aliens not because it makes sense, not because I think Democrats are really against it. It's because there's resistance against this president. They don't want to give this president a win on the border. This is the politics at its worst. And I won't shut up. And I hope you all continue fighting the fight. With that, I want to make the next introduction because there's a guy I want to introduce you to. His name is Mark Morgan. He was the chief of the Border Patrol in the Obama administration. I worked with him. And Mark called me one day. Now, Mark was the chief. And Trump came in, President Trump, and made a change. So some people will be upset with that. Mark called me one day, saw me on Fox a lot, and said, hey, man, how do I join the fight? Because I'm done being silent. I think the wall needs to be built. You know what Mark shared with me today? Because I told him how upset I was over the Menendez comment on DUI. Mark lost his father to DUI. So he's even more insulted to this. So here's a real patriot, a friend of mine, and he's coming to join me with this fight. Mark Morgan, Chief.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, look, what does today represent? It's clear. Look around you. Look at these angel families. This is undeniable truth and fact. The threat we face along the southwest border due to uncontrolled illegal immigration and unsecure borders. This is not hyperbole. This is not manufactured. And anybody that says it is, they're lying to the American people. Just look right here. And yesterday, look, I want to try to stay out of this and naming names because Tom does it better than I could. But I do want to talk about a congressman who yesterday got out there and wanted to downplay the crime of driving drunk. I just a few minutes ago talked to an angel family that lost a loved one at the hands of an illegal immigrant that shouldn't have been here, was driving drunk, and now their loved one is dead. And you're going to have a congressman say that doesn't matter, that doesn't count? Well, I wonder, how about he comes and talks to that family? How about he comes and talks to 10,000 plus Americans that die every year at the hands of a drunk driver and say that doesn't count? It's irresponsible, it's reckless, and they're lying to the American people. So it's about time when I want everybody in this country to just take a minute, take a pause, and think about this. How many more angel families do we have to create before we say enough is enough? How many more American citizens have to die at the hands of an illegal immigrant that shouldn't be here before we say enough is enough? How many? We should be united together, but we should be united together not as a Republican, not as a Democrat, right? Americans. We should be united as Americans, standing together, shoulder to shoulder, to say enough is enough. Not one more American citizen should die, should give their life because we have a broken immigration system and unsecure borders. So it's about time, everybody, me, you, everybody, we put aside our individual political ideology. As Tom said, listen to the experts. Put aside the political idea. The president has done that. The president, I know, the president is listening to the experts. So I hope the president's okay with this, but this isn't his plan. This is the experts' plans. They have said we need more physical barrier in certain critical key locations. We need additional technology. We need more personnel, right? So why aren't we listening to the experts? Why aren't we giving them the tools and the resources that they have asked for to protect our country so that we can stop another angel family from being created? Amen. Yeah. So what I will say today, the proposal, Tom, I'm with him. This proposal doesn't do it. A down payment is not enough. We need to give the men and women, 128 Border Patrol agents have lost their lives protecting our borders. That's another thing that's not hyperbole or manufactured. Why aren't we giving them the tools and the resources they need to protect our borders? We should. So let's keep fighting. And I'm going to keep fighting too. All right? Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to introduce the former Kansas Secretary of State, but now with We Build the Wall, Chris Kobach.
Go, Chris. Thank you. You know, 2 weeks ago, I was standing under Anzalduas Bridge in McAllen, Texas, which is now one of the most heavily trafficked areas for people coming in. Some estimates are that the majority of illegal aliens are now coming in right there under that bridge, 3 miles wide open, right next to the city of McAllen. In a half hour, we saw about 35 people walking in broad daylight, and they were planning to go rendezvous with a Border Patrol van and immediately make a false claim of asylum, like Tom Homan mentioned. And then they'll be given a piece of paper and sent on their way, released into the American public. That area needs a wall. It needs it quickly. 1 week ago, I was standing on top of Montezuma Pass, which is right on the border. It's a peak right on the border. And if you look to the east, toward Naco in Arizona, there's more than a dozen miles of 18-foot-high bollard fence. It has effectively sealed the border. If you look toward the west, toward the American Patagonias, you have a 20-mile wide-open stretch where the traffickers are just coming right in. Spoke to some Border Patrol officers who were making an apprehension in that very area. And as I see the illegal aliens coming in through McAllen, and I know they're coming in Arizona, my question is, if 100 came in today, how many of that 100 are going to get behind the wheel drunk and kill an American, like as has been the experience of so many families here? How many of that 100 are going to engage in crime while they're here and kill or injure an American? There is a cost to the open border. Now, it was mentioned earlier that there's 500 miles open. No, it's not 500 miles open. There's about 1,800 miles of open border. And I count anything that a pedestrian can't get past as an open border. Sometimes the government says it's not open if there's a barbed wire fence and there's a steel beam about this high called a Normandy barrier to stop a car. No, that's an open border. Any pedestrian can hop over that in less than 30 seconds. We have to get busy, and get busy now securing this wall. Even if President Trump gets every penny he asks for, there's no way in the next 2 years we're going to be able to seal up that 1,800 miles. That's why We Build the Wall was formed by an Air Force veteran, triple amputee Brian Colfage, to say, you know what, we the people can help too. We can raise private money, and with that money we can build on private land, and that's what we're doing to help the federal government, because it's a huge task, and the government can't do it alone. And so we the people can do it. And so we found it started as a GoFundMe page. Now it's a separate organization, WeBuildTheWall.us. And we want to stand with the angel families, because that is why we need to build the wall, to protect all of us. Look, our country is looking for people who will stand in the gap and build the wall. Donald Trump is one of those people. These people behind me are people who are willing to do that. We at We Build the Wall are willing to do that. We have to say, yeah, I'll do it. Whatever I can do, I'll do it. We have to do something now and stop ignoring this massive problem that has been ignored for too long. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, I'd like to introduce the Sheriff of Bristol County, Massachusetts, Sheriff Hodgson.
Good morning. Massachusetts is about 2,200 miles from the southern border, about a 38-hour drive. We have the 7th highest overdose rate in the United States. We have the 2nd most common place to find fentanyl, and 90% of that's coming from the southern border. When I hear people up on the Hill here, these pro-illegal people talking about the fact that we don't need a wall, their parents walking into their children's room in the morning when their young adult children aren't waking up and finding them dead in bed because of overdoses. This is happening in cities all over this nation. We have an opioid crisis. And you know, I've known a lot of these angel moms and dads and worked with them over the years, and I have to tell you something. It saddens me that the American sheriffs across this nation, our ICE officers, Border Patrol, all our federal partners, who work every day to keep them safe. Sadly, we couldn't keep these families safe. Not because we weren't doing our job and looking for every resource to partner and collaborate, but because these people here in Congress thought that politics was more important than the lives of the loved ones that these people have lost. And how shameful is that? And who of us in this country ever thought in America that we would elect people, pay them to come here, and that they would be working so hard to make the citizens of this nation less safe than they otherwise could be? We know what's going on the ground. I've been to the borders 3 times. And I know what's happening on the interior, and so do you. And if nothing else, we owe it to these moms and dads, all of us, not to have more people added to the heartache that they feel every day. And let me just add one last thing. We have angel moms and we have angel dads. In Bristol County, Massachusetts, 2 years ago, we now added an angel child, a 2-year-old who was a mom, single mother. Her father had been deported already, served 10 years for attempted murder. She called her dad and said, "I'm not going to be able to be with you on Father's Day, but I'll see you the day after." He didn't like that. So he drove over to her parking lot next to her home, and as she was taking groceries out of the car, he shot and killed her. So now we have an angel child. Enough is enough. And the people here in Congress need to do the people's work and fulfill their obligation and their oath and the promise that they made, as all of us sheriffs did, all of ICE did, all of the Border Patrol people and our law enforcement partners across this nation, to keep our families and our citizens safe and our country safe. So lastly, we stand with these angel moms and dads and all the American citizens across this nation throughout our communities. It's time. And it was just said by Mark. When we enforce our laws, we don't look to determine whether or not we're going to respond based on whether somebody's a Democrat or Republican, and neither should they. It's time, America.
So we're going to introduce the angel families to you because of time constraints. They won't have an opportunity to share their story, but each story, if you were to hear it, is tragic. No parent wants to even think about losing a child or outliving a child. The Vargases, whose son, who's only 20 years old, was murdered and set on fire. Or Suzanne, whose daughter had a beautiful daughter, had a bright future ahead of her, died from drug overdose. These are real stories, and these are real tragedies that we're facing as a nation. So let's begin first with Wendy and Avery Corcoran. Wendy lost her son, Avery, her brother, at only 22 years old, and not even 2 months ago. Avery, here they are right here.
On December 29th, 2018, my brother, Pierce Kennedy Corcoran, was killed when an illegal alien who had been in our country for 14 years swerved over the center line into oncoming traffic, hitting Pierce's car and causing a chain reaction wreck. Pierce was only 22 years old. Francisco Eduardo Franco Cambrini, 44, had no driver's license, no insurance, and was driving a third-party vehicle that was also uninsured. It's not about where this man came from, but how he came here, remained here, and didn't follow our laws. In recent days, it has been stated by some that illegal aliens should not be criminalized because of their status, when in fact that very status, or lack thereof, is a crime in and of itself. People have become deaf to the word illegal and what it means. Coming into this country without citizenship, with the intent to stay, is illegal. Driving without a license or insurance is illegal. Letting a work visa expire and not doing anything to rectify it is illegal. If we make exceptions on these types of things, we open ourselves up to all kinds of problems. For example, Senator Bob Menendez of New Jersey said the other day that illegal aliens with DUIs are, quote, being demonized by Trump and are not criminals. I bet some of the angel families represented here today would beg to differ with that statement. We cannot turn a blind eye to the kinds of issues that illegal immigration causes in our country. We cannot compromise on our national security. My brother Pierce was a hard-working, compassionate, and upstanding member of our community. He deserved better than this from our country and our justice system. The man who killed him has served little jail time and believes he should remain in our country illegally, fighting his deportation, while all the while we provide his legal counsel. Our world has become an upside-down place where victims of illegal alien crime are vilified by certain sides of the media, and breaking the law has become glorified. I will leave you with these parting words that were found in my brother Pierce's journal, a journal that was wedged between the dash and the shattered windshield of his mangled car. My actions still matter. Congress, your actions still matter. Thank you.
And next, the mother of Dominic, who's become all of our sons, really. She's one of the first to start speaking out on this subject, Sabina Durden.
Thank you, Amy Kramer. Thank you, Women for Trump, for making this happen. I wrote a letter to my son. This is the before picture. This is the after picture in the morgue, where I touched his dead, cold, bruised hands for the last time. I'm going to read quick. My sweet German chocolate Dominic, you came into this world with a destiny, purpose, and the biggest smile and heart. God gifted me the greatest and best son a mom could ask for, and he made sure you were given the ability to touch many lives in your short 30 years here on earth. Not only were you the light and love of my life, but you taught me so much and inspired me daily from the day you were born in Germany, January 22nd, 82. I watched in amazement as you treated everyone with such kindness, love, and compassion. My heart exploded with pride when you excelled in school, received award after award, and yet always stayed humble and never bragged about anything you accomplished. Working as a 911 Sheriff's Department dispatcher or as a volunteer firefighter, you have saved and impacted many lives. Your big heart, laughter, and loving Dom hugs became your signature, and everyone that met you, even if it was just for a minute, felt that unique and very real connection. You made so many friends here and all over the world that will never forget you. No coincidence that everyone still calls themselves your best friend. Dominic, your epic pranks and roaring laughter were well known, and your willingness to always help are still appreciated and remembered. Your friends still miss you terribly and name babies after you, talk about you often, and even still celebrate your birthday every year. July will be 7 years since your life brutally ended in California, and still leaving many of us trying to understand the why. Why was your killer a legal alien protected for so long? Why did he only serve 35 days in jail with a long arrest record? Why would some of our politicians fight harder for illegals than Americans? Many questions, no answers. The day I received the call about your death changed me forever. I not only was destroyed and broke my heart, but it left me without a purpose to continue this life without you. Being your mom was my destiny and gave me the greatest joy and happiness. You were my one and only child, my best friend, and sadly all of our hopes and dreams were shattered on 7/12/12 at 5:45 in the morning. Never again would I get to hug and kiss you or hear your infectious laughter. I often wonder what you'd be doing today. Would you be the helicopter pilot for the police as you planned? Would you be married, have kids? While I never will know those answers, I do know that I still have a purpose, strength, and the resolve and the power to fight. I'm fighting against what and who killed you and gave me a newfound purpose, driving energy. My deep and unconditional love for you in life as in death gives me superpowers to make it through another day and nights filled with many nightmares. Your love for me and your presence that I feel intensely guides me. There's still a lot to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Sabina. For the first time ever, Americans are more likely to die from an opioid overdose than a car crash. The chances of an accidental opioid overdose are 1 in 96. Susan Stevens lost her daughter to an overdose.
Hi, this is my daughter, Toria Stevens. You can Google her obituary and some documentaries that have been done on her. Toria Stevens was 22 years old. She died January 22nd of last year. I just celebrated the 1-year anniversary of her life, of her death, but it was her life because I celebrate her every single day. She was my golden child. Didn't have to help her with homework. She had everything done before she got home from school. She was absolutely a superstar, my golden child. And she had a poem tattooed on her back, and it was called Nothing Gold Can Stay. It was a Robert Frost poem, and the poem represented her life. It was a classic, and it was published in 1923 that resonated with her. It won the Pulitzer Prize for Poetry in the New Hampshire collection. The poem reads, "Nature's first green is gold, her hardest hue to hold. Her early leaf's a flower, but only so an hour. Then leaf subsides to leaf, so Eden sank to grief. So dawn goes down to day, nothing gold can stay." My daughter had the words "nothing gold can stay" tattooed on her back, and I refused to read the poem until the day she died. My daughter was an artist, a poet. She just was a superstar in school and in sports. She was raped violently, vaginally and anally, on August 7th, 2014, and she suffered PTSD. For 3.5 years, we went through hell. She had night terrors, flashbacks. She would tremble. The medicines they gave her, she became addicted to. Ambien to sleep, benzos, Xanax, just to get through the day, to stop shaking and stop trembling. My daughter's life was beautiful until that day. After 3.5 years, I kissed her goodbye naked on the floor, and I promised her that she didn't die in vain. I told her I loved her and how proud I was because she fought it so hard. The latest statistics are 72,000 people died in 2017. My daughter died in 2018, so that she wasn't even included. But that is 197 people a day. That's a 747 jetliner crashing every single day, and there's no outrage. We have to secure the borders. We have to secure our children. The opioid epidemic is real. It is taking the lives, and we're in the shadows because of the stigma, because of the shame. I have nothing to be ashamed of. My daughter was a superstar. She wrote a poem herself. I'm going to close with her poem. This is something she wrote herself. The Voice of Addiction. Well, it's nice to finally meet you. I've been waiting for your call. I noticed you've been crying, and I've watched you pace the halls. Whatever has been hurting you, I can make it disappear. You have nothing to lose, nothing to live for, nothing to fear. Thank you for your invention. I'll be sure not to leave your side. We'll be very fast acquainted, my naive child. There's no use trying to hide. I should probably introduce myself. I'm your very own addiction. But you cannot be angry with me. I am your own self-conviction. I bet you feel rather stupid, falling right into my lap. I'm a master at manipulation, and you'll never escape my trap. And that trap is killing 72,000 people a year. Please help us secure the border.
I'd like to ask Shelley Woods to come up. And her mom, Kathy. She's coming up.
Sure. Hi, I'm Shelley Woods, sister of Steve Woods. He was 17 years old. This photo right here is a paint roller rod plunged through his head, temple to temple. He was down at the beach with a group of his friends, and he came, a gang of illegals came down to randomly attack him. He was in a car of 6 trying to escape this setup that was set up to get them. They were all ducked down in their car as logs were flying through the back windows, crowbars were smashing all the glass out, full beer cans being hucked at them. So as they were ducked down, this right here is a sharpened paint roller rod that they plunged through his head, temple to temple. And I will tell you this, he was not dead that night, and he was trapped, not in a coma. So for approximately nearly a month, we figured out after the doctors came in to pull the plug on the life support, his vitals went crazy. So he was in there listening. So to be trapped in his body for that long is insane. This happened in 1993. We still have 2 out of 4. There should have been 9. 2 out of 6. There should have been 9 in prison. 3 of them, they didn't have their Miranda rights said right, so they didn't get to go to prison. So 4 out of those 6 are gone, out, somewhere in California. Their families are there, all on the system, all illegal. We have 2 right now in prison, and those 2, one of them is threatening to murder my mother and I, and he has recently asked for clemency from Governor Jerry Brown. So we are still currently dealing with this, and I'm going to go ahead and pass the rest over to my mother, Kathy Woods. Thank you.
I just want to say,
Go get in front of the microphone.
I just want to say that it has continued on. It has never ended. It's a total nightmare every day of your life. It never finishes unless you just want to curl up and not do anything about anything. So you have to fight, and rather than just mention my own story, each and every one of us here who have lost someone do not want those deaths to be in vain. And the only way we can help ourselves and help our country is to fight for this border wall, for any security, anything to stop illegal aliens coming in here. I know many of us came the right way, and we are losing our own children from someone coming the wrong way. There's so many reasons. We need, first and foremost, a government's first order of duty is to protect its citizens. And protecting its citizens is a part of these illegals coming in. Why has this never happened? Why is this going on for years and years and years? We are here to have our loved ones not all have died in vain, and our way of doing it is fighting for this war and defense of all of us. And not an aside, but for those people out there, there's one other thing I want to mention. Several of us have had these attackers that were in the same schools as our children. And the schools are a dangerous place, but no one says anything. My heart goes out to all those moms and dads out there. One thing you need to do is check who your children are going to school with.
Thank you so much. All right, Kayan, Michael, would you come up and talk about your son, Brandon? I know you want to say a few words about him.
Thank you, Amy Schumer, for making this possible. My name is Kayan. This is my son, Brandon Michael. He was killed. His life was taken. He was killed on August 15, 2007. He was on his lunch break, going to cash his hard-earned paycheck, when an illegal, twice-deported immigrant hit our son, caused his car to flip, The illegal immigrant got out of the car and watched our son suffer and take his last breath. Because he got out of the car, our family not only had to deal with losing our precious baby, we had to go through a lengthy trial to prove that that illegal immigrant who cowardly got out of the car hit our son. We had to go back to the scene of the crime, which was a very difficult thing, and ask and beg for witnesses that may have seen the accident to come forward. Finally, a police officer that had been on the scene and was out of the country, who didn't know we were looking for a witness, came forward and pointed him out in the courtroom. It only took the jury long enough to go back and convene and come back in the room to convict him, and he was only given 2 years. 2 years for my son's life. It's not enough. We shouldn't be here. None of this should be happening. Brandon was an avid Dallas Cowboy fan. He was engaged to be married. We should have been planning his wedding and not a funeral. So I'm here today, and I'm going to keep on knocking on doors. I'm going to keep on screaming. I'm going to stay loud, because our children, my Brandon, deserve better than the justice that he never received. Our son never received justice, and to this day we don't know if the illegal immigrant has he come back in this country. There's no way we can track it. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you. I'd like to invite the Vargas family up, please. Lori and Jean and Kristen, to talk about Jared. They just lost him only 7 months ago.
Good morning.
Hi, thank you. I wrote a small poem and dedicated it to my son Jared. He was brutally murdered and then his body set on fire. He had been in and out of custody, and just roughly 2 weeks before murdering my son, he was given a voluntary deportation order. Here's my poem to Jared. His name was Jared Vargas, barely 20 years old. His life taken tragically. Our promise to make sure his story told. His name was Jared Vargas, young life full of dreams. Planning his future, a future stolen as of June 18, 2018. His name was Jared Vargas. How I miss his smile. Flying high on them positive vibes. Your infectious spirit radiated for miles. His name was Jared Vargas. He's now with God. Angel boy watching over us. Gone, but will never be forgotten. I'm now an angel mom, wishing this experience on no one. His name was Jared Vargas, and he was my son.
Thank you very much.
Yes, go ahead. Yeah.
No, these nightmares must stop. All these stories. Our son was born with a spirit of adventure, had a passion for life, a hard worker, great student. His contagious smile will always be there in our hearts. Dearly miss him.
Thank you, Jean.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Thank you. They don't get easier to hear. Dan Ferguson to share about his daughter.
Good afternoon. I'm from El Paso, Texas. My name's Dan Ferguson. This is my daughter, Amanda, doing what we like to do, laugh until we cry. I'm here as a part of this group. My daughter was killed on Thanksgiving this year by an illegal alien that was caught in 2012, deported. He re-entered, became a felon by re-entering. He was arrested for aggravated assault, put in jail. They released him without having notified ICE for any type of detainer. He went out, he got into a drunking spree. He ran 2 red lights and killed my angel as she crossed the street in a crosswalk. This is a group that you do not want to belong in. I belong to this group for 2.5 months now, and it's just tragic. You know, we are the American citizens that President Trump is trying to protect. We are the people in America. I'm a retired teacher My wife's an educator. My son's an educator. My daughter was a 6th grade teacher. She was the glue that held our family together. You know, now that that glue has been taken from us, you know, we need to get this border secure. I'm from El Paso. I've seen what the border can do. I was there before the wall. I was there after the wall. I've seen the reduction of crime. I've seen the reduction of illegal aliens coming across the border. We need to finish the wall. Thank you.
Thank you. She's beautiful. Thank you, Dana. Michelle Root, would you come up, please, and share your story?
Hello, my name is Michelle Root, and I have a letter to write that I wrote to my daughter Sarah. Sarah, Mom has missed you for these last 3 years plus 14 days. I know you're watching over me. I know you're trying your best to keep us going. As you can see with all of the families that are here, we are all fighting as one to get that wall built and to protect the American citizens so nobody else has to join this group that nobody wants to be a part of. Again, I miss you every day, Sarah. Mama loves you. I never thought I'd stand up here and speak of you in the past tense, but I just want you to know I love you more.
This lady lost her husband. We don't hear many stories about that, but it happens as well. Marla Wolf will share her story. Marla, come on up.
My husband, Carlos Wolf, was 36 years old. He was a FBI supervisory special agent who had gotten into a car accident on December 8th, 2017. After his accident, Deputy Chief Fire Marshal Sander Cohen pulled behind him, and the two men were waiting on the shoulder on the highway when they were hit by Roberto Garza Palacios, a man who had overstayed his visa since 2009, had two DUIs on record and 2 counts of endangerment of life, property, and person, possession of cocaine, a long laundry list of crimes already committed. And he is currently out on a $15,000 bail, still has not been deported. And so we continue to seek justice. The worst part about all of these stories is that oftentimes the illegal alien that committed the crime have already committed crimes and they are not deported. They are still allowed to continue on with their lives. Meanwhile, we don't get to have our loved ones, but they get to enjoy the rights and freedoms of America. So I wrote a letter to my husband. Dear Carlos, I miss you so much, and we still cannot believe that you are gone. Your life was taken far too soon. You had so much more to give in this world and so much more to do. You dedicated your life to keep this country safe, but in the end, you were not kept safe because of laws in this country that protect the guilty over the innocent. You would be so very proud of our children. Joshua is growing up to be a brave boy, and he reminds me so much of you. And Johanna, our little pumpkin, is as sweet and feisty as ever, and is always at peace because in her heart she knows that you are in heaven. I will continue to fight against the injustices in this country for you and for all those who have suffered. I love you and miss you, and you are forever in my heart. Thank you. God bless you.
Catherine Hall, would you come up real quick?
I left my picture at home today, unfortunately, but this is my daughter, Haley King. She was 18 years old when she was killed by an illegal alien in November of 2016. The man, after he was finally found 2 days after my daughter's death, was released within 2 hours of being found. He has since received a 17-year sentence in the state of Arkansas, which he will be paroled in 2 years. That's all he's going to serve. He will not be paroled like the rest, or like a normal U.S. citizen, and monitored. He will be released, and the chances are returned, because right before sentencing, he was allowed to marry a U.S. citizen. I didn't write a poem to my daughter today or a letter, but I wanted to read something that she had written. I am Haley Sayal King. I am a teenager who loves easy, loves those who do not deserve it, and laughs to try not to cry. I, Haley Sayal King, do not care about drama, but remember my name, because I am Haley Sayal King, and one day I am going to do very big things. She never got a chance to do those things. You know, even though the injustice that our family feels from her death, I want people to understand that some of these votes that are coming up, and some of our legislators that you may not agree with their votes, sometimes there's a reason behind them, just like the ones now that are not strong enough and are going to allow a lot of things that we as Americans, I don't think, are willing to let go through. Our U.S. Senator Tom Cotton for Arkansas was one of those, and I want to thank him for standing strong and make people understand the votes aren't always what you think they are about. Also, our State Senator Linda Collins Smith, she has been there for me and for a lot of us, and still to this day has done everything she can to still help with this, and is here with me to be by my side, and I wanted to thank you. Thank you. Okay.
All right, thank you. I'd like to ask Judy and Tony Zietto, please, to come up.
I do just want to switch gears really quick. A New York City police detective is dead after a shootout in Queens. He was killed in friendly fire. 42-year-old Detective Brian Simonson was on the force for nearly 20 years. He and Sergeant Matthew Gorman were responding to a robbery at a cell phone store, a T-Mobile store in the Richmond Hill neighborhood. When both officers entered the store, they saw the suspect armed with what appeared to be a gun. Investigators say they retreated from the store. Both officers were shot by friendly fire.
This is an absolute tragedy, the worst outcome any police officer or family of a police officer could ever imagine.
Detective Simonson leaves behind his wife and 2 young children. Sergeant Gorman is stable with a leg wound. He was taken to the hospital by a Good Samaritan. We've been following a developing news story out of Chester County. Take a look at these images. A dairy farm goes up in flames overnight, and crews were still on scene early this morning trying to save the animals and what's left of the farm. Fox 29's Steve Keeley filed this report this morning.
Among the rolling hills of rural Chester County, 50 miles outside Philadelphia, it's Amish country and volunteer fire company territory. And today, brave volunteers and the Amish made a terrific team to save an Amish farm family's way of life and where they live. For the Amish, no texts, no emails, no iPhones, just word of mouth. For the firefighters, no fire hydrants, just tankers, trucking in the water, truck after truck. These shots of flames through a big barn burning as firefighters arrived overnight just off Route 10 in Honeybrook, along the same country road their firehouse is on. Amish neighbors in the dark, cold wind that whipped the flames walked across this frozen, snow-covered farm field to help out. The fire department worked on the flames. The Amish worked to save all the livestock, cows and horses, lots of cows that took lots of trips with livestock trailers. And just across from the farm field, as the flames finally smoldered down to just smoke, higher up on a mountainside, 15-year-old Stephen King's Amish family had a big vacancy for this big group. And so while the Amish may not believe in modern world conveniences like washers, dryers, or dry cleaners, their old world sense of community is something no modern technology can ever top. In Chester County, Steve Keeley, Fox 29 News.
Out in Delaware County, a terrifying situation unfolded in Haverford Township. An 18-year-old man is in critical condition after getting shot in the face. It happened last night at Glengarry Drive and Rose Tree Lane. We've learned that the three men were seen running from the scene through backyards towards Glendale Road. Authorities say multiple videos show the suspects, and they will be using them during their investigation. Just this morning, police provided an update stating that a 17-year-old who they believe to be the shooter is now in police custody, and that this horrible shooting was all over an ounce of marijuana. Here's a look at that press conference.
Chief Tom is yours. Okay, so I'm Chief John Viola, Haverford Township Police Department. At 8:18 last night, 911 received a call of a possible shooting at the intersection of Rose Tree and Glengarry. First arriving officers on the scene found a male victim laying in the street with a gunshot wound to the face. He was subsequently transported to Lankenau Hospital and then transferred to Jefferson Hospital by Narberth medics. I'm told he's in critical condition at this time. I have no more updates for him. He's a male, 18 years old. His name is Marcus Mays. He's a Haverford Township resident. The victim arrived at that location with two other males, we believe, for a drug deal. At some point there was an altercation with the people he was supposed to meet. There was two other people in that car. At some point during that altercation, he was shot in the face. All the suspects took off running. We were able to obtain various surveillance video from the neighborhood and able to identify some suspects. We right now have a 17-year-old in custody we believe is the shooter. Detectives are now serving a search warrant on the house, but he is in custody here at the police station. The investigation is ongoing, and to our knowledge, this was over an ounce of marijuana, which is tragic to have a shooting for an 18-year-old committed by a 17-year-old. And we're also told there was other juveniles in the car also. So right now the investigation is ongoing. We expect to have more information as the day progresses.
Chief, what about the weapon? Cover a weapon yet?
We have not yet, but we expect to do that. We believe that's a stolen weapon also.
Where's the 17-year-old from?
In Havertown. Both are from Havertown.
Were there other known drug activity there in the past?
We're told there may have been some drug activity. Our undercover detective were working on it over there, but so we're aware of some activity. It's a very, very residential neighborhood. It's not a high crime area at all.
So it sounds personal. So residents in the area don't really have any reason to be concerned?
No concern at all. And the victim and the shooter are known to each other. So it's not a random shooting by any stretch of the imagination. They met there for a specific reason to conduct business, illegal business of some sort.
Do they both go to the high school?
One is a high school student, yes.
The victim?
The victim is, that's correct, yes.
Was the victim armed?
In just a few moments, I'm going to recap this. This is in the middle of a press conference in Florida with State Attorney Aramis Ayala. They are doing a press conference on a review of the Pulse nightclub shooting. So just at the end of this broadcast, I'm going to play that out for you guys. But in the meantime, back over to some local news. I just want to get through this for you. A thief in Fishtown and Northern Liberties is stealing a critical piece of equipment that firefighters use to battle fires. Video outside this Northern Liberties home shows a guy kneeling down, stealing what's called a brass flapper valve from the building's sprinkler system. Removing the valves creates safety concerns for buildings if a fire breaks out.
Within the last month or so, there was a big fire in my neighborhood, and this is a safety concern. You know, taking sprinkler heads, if something goes wrong in any of these buildings, these are here for safety.
My concern, and what else are they going to do if they're going for this? You know what I mean? So it's something I never would have thought of.
Investigators do believe it is the same guy, but so far they do not have any leads.
The commissioners are doing a tough job and a hard time. They're trying to make sure that they get the opportunity to put new machines in place before we get to the 2020 elections, because it's going to be a bear to do this during a presidential election year. And we understand their need for moving forward, and we appreciate that. We just want to make sure that, in fact, all companies that have software have this, because from time to time they have to do updates to their system. This is one of the places where black hat operatives can get in. And I'm not just talking about some kid in his basement. Some of our allies here, we've got Citizens for a Better Election.
And Lincoln took this view of history.
Philadelphia City Commissioners are set to vote today on new voting machines. Yesterday, activists gathered at City Hall calling for the most secure, reliable way to vote. They say the old-fashioned way is the most hacker-proof. The decision of paper or electronic will be revealed later today. The family of a missing man whose body was found over the weekend in New Jersey wants answers. 56-year-old Joseph Brockington's body was found in Smithville Park after investigators say he died from hypothermia. He left the Catholic Charities group home in East Hampton, New Jersey on November 1st with 58-year-old Juan Garcia. Garcia has not been found. Meanwhile, Brockington's family is still shocked to learn about their loved one.
Very concerned about that. It just doesn't make any sense to us. It really doesn't make any sense. Joseph never just leave without authority. Like, he's been supervised his whole life.
A spokesperson for Catholic Charities says Brockington lived in a independent supportive housing, meaning he had the right to come and go as he pleased. Well, out in Camden County, the search continues for this man. A South Jersey mom told us she saw this guy filming 2 young girls below the waist on his phone at a Voorhees Target. Police want to talk to the man in this video and anyone else who may have witnessed this suspicious activity. If you do recognize this man, you are asked to please contact police immediately. Well, some fellow officers are helping their brother in blue. Here are the unique items being sold to help raise money for the family of Highway Patrol officer injured in a crash last month.
An effort is underway to raise money for Philadelphia Highway Patrolman Andy Chan, who remains hospitalized following an accident last month. Officer Chan was riding his motorcycle the night of January 3rd when he was hit by a van and critically injured in Northeast Philadelphia. The other driver remained at the scene and was investigated, but ultimately no charges were filed. Officer Chan is still in a coma.
The Philadelphia Police Department is selling challenge coins, what they're calling, with Officer Chan's badge number for $20 each. Well, I'll let them explain. Joining us this morning, Officer Chan's supervisor, Captain Anthony Luca, and his 2 fellow officers who actually helped design the coins. Officer Ed Ruth is here, and also Officer Scott Holmes. Thank y'all for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The badges look great. The coins look great.
They do.
First of all, let's get an update on Officer Chan.
Yeah, he's doing phenomenal. He's 2 months ahead of schedule from what the doctor has told us. Family's real optimistic, spirit-filled. He's doing extremely well. Eyes are open. He's off his breathing tube, so he's making all
no more ventilator.
No more ventilator. He's right in progress where he's supposed to be.
So doctors believe it's possible he could fully recover?
Yes, they're optimistic. I mean, that's the reports we're getting at this point, and we all know that it's a slow process. Anytime there's a head injury such that he has, and we're just praying for him every day.
But 2 months ahead of schedule is a good sign.
Absolutely, yes.
That is great. He's not speaking though.
No speaking. Yes.
Anytime we think about him, we think about his kids. His wife and kids. He has 3 children and a wife. You check in with him all the time?
Absolutely. We talk to him daily. She's at the hospital every day with him. She's the trooper. She's, like I said, she's very happy. She's very optimistic. She loves the support. She wanted me to let you guys know she wants to thank everyone from all the officers in the highway unit as well as the entire city. She wants to thank them, and humbly she wants to say that she's so proud of everybody coming forward.
Because he's been getting a lot of visitors, hasn't he?
Yes, a lot of visitors, just a lot of support, and just a lot of recognition. Andy was a spirit-filled guy. He's loved by everyone.
And
he was funny.
Yeah, it speaks to his character, right? He would go and do talks, and everyone would just, his smile would light up the room.
Absolutely. He's known throughout the entire department as well as the entire city. Yeah. Everyone knows Andy.
But you got to check with everybody because, he needs his rest, so he can't take a lot of visitors.
Correct. Yeah, we're not taking visitors at this point until the doctor recommends that and the family also approves of it.
Let's look at the coins.
So we have you guys designed the coin.
Yes, ma'am.
And tell us what was the reasoning behind what we see on it now.
I'll start with this side. This side has Andy's badge, as well as accommodations, which represent some of the accomplishments in his career. He's been decorated with the Medal of Valor, Medal of Bravery, Medal of Heroism, amongst several other different awards. He's a highly decorated officer in the Philadelphia Police Department.
What's on the back? There's the back of it.
This would be the highway wings that we wear after we get certified on the motorcycle.
Right.
And then our summer and winter patches. He would always greet everyone with highway.
So you had to put that on there.
Had to put that on there, and then down here it says highway in Chinese.
Wow.
How do we get them?
There's a website you can go to. It's Officer Chan Coins at Comcast.net. You send us an email, and I will get back to you as soon as we get it, and mail one right out to you.
And I know that every penny of this goes to the family. How much are they each again?
$20 a piece.
And the first time you guys put these out there, they sold out quickly, didn't they?
Yeah, these guys put together the campaign, and within 2.5 days, the first 1,000 was sold. Mostly from our department, and other people that know about it came from other jurisdictions to purchase it from our headquarters.
I know our viewers, and they're going to be jumping online right now. So you have plenty?
We have another batch ordered, and we're probably going to order more than that.
We sure anybody that wants one.
Yeah, we'll get them.
We'll definitely get them.
Okay, they're beautiful.
They
Absolutely
are.
beautiful.
Well done, seriously.
Our best to the family. We're rooting for you, that's for sure.
And we're rooting for Andy.
Thank you.
Any way we can help besides doing this, we're happy to do it.
We appreciate all
And
the support.
very much.
Please keep us updated. on how it's
Absolutely.
going.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You know, I mean, riding motorcycles. I mean, do you think about this every day when you hop on your bikes?
Absolutely.
It's part of the business, isn't it? The danger of it.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. So we just want to say thank you
Yes.
for protecting us and for your service.
Thank you for what you do.
Thank you.
It means so much.
Keep riding strong out there. We'll take a break.
Out in Houston, Texas, a tiger earns its stripes and a new home after he was found inside an abandoned home in Houston. 2 people discovered the 350-pound tiger inside a cage after getting inside the house to smoke marijuana. He's now at an animal sanctuary in northeast Texas. Humane Society says he's probably a few years old and likely a hybrid, which is common in captivity-bred tigers. No word on how he got inside the house or where his original owners are. The birthplace of one of the biggest companies in the world is up for grabs. From the Fox 29 or Fox Business Network studio, Tracy Carrasco has more.
Do I not have to explain to anybody who Jeff Bezos is at this point, do I?
No.
He's the richest man in the world.
Right. The founder of Amazon.
Right, and he founded Amazon in the garage of a home up in the suburb of Seattle. So Tracy, does he still own it, but I know it's on the market to be sold.
It is on the market. He does not own it.
Okay.
He first rented this home back in the 90s, and this is where Amazon, which was then known as Cadabra, it was an online bookstore. This is where it all started. This is where it was launched. So it was previously sold in 2005 for $375,000.
Okay.
In 2009, it was sold for $620,000. As I
right.
mentioned, right now it's going for $1.5 million. It is a 3-bedroom home. It has 1.75 bathrooms, so you can really see how prices of real estate in Seattle have gone up over the years. But what a little piece of history if you wanted to maybe buy into that. If you are a fan of Amazon, a fan of Jeff Bezos, this could be something you're interested in, but officially on the market as of just a few days ago.
You know, Bellevue, I've been to Bellevue. It's just it's part, Puget Sound, and it's a gorgeous area of the country if you put up the rain.
And it's probably the only house where when people come over, the first thing you say is, "Hey, want to see my garage?" That's
Exactly.
where Jeff Bezos found Amazon.
So I guess you'd factor in the fame of the house, but houses are going for over $1 million in that neighborhood anyway.
So it's already not just because of who he is.
Yeah, it's a beautiful area.
Okay.
Well, Tracy, I've been compelled now to put my childhood home on the market. This is literally the home I grew up in.
Wow.
In Wichita, Kansas.
What's the asking price?
Well, I'll tell you, $67,000.
You don't want to up that a little more? You don't think it's worth a little more?
I might be able to squeeze $70,000 out of somebody.
Well, give us the deets. How many bedrooms?
All right. It has 2 bedrooms, 1 bath, and we crammed 9 people in there.
Wow.
When I was growing up, at one point my grandmother had to live with us because she had health issues. So 2 bedrooms, 1 bath, 6 kids, 2 parents, and my grandma.
But the memories, you have the memories.
Yes, the fighting.
The stories those walls
No, I mean
could
the
tell.
love that was spread.
Are there any markings? Did you ever engrave your name,
Oh, yeah,
or
you know,
someone find it?
Yeah, we drew, you know, as we got taller, you know, and, you know.
I'm just saying, some things you can prove. Mike Jarek lived here.
That's right.
Because that's going to be the selling point.
I'll tell you, after church on Sunday, Tracy, there actually literally was a line to go to the bathroom. You know, you'll come rushing home from church, and you'd get in line. Now, my mom always got to go first, you know.
Naturally.
And then my dad. But if you took the paper in, we knew we were all messed up. I mean, it was going to be a bad Sunday. Tracy, we'll see you tomorrow.
It's definitely getting a little more cloudier than we saw when we started this broadcast here in Old City, Philadelphia. I do want to close out with a press conference. It's about an hour long with the Florida State regarding the Pulse nightclub shooting. Hold on just a moment. So the state attorney's office held a news conference just this morning about it. Maybe 30 minutes ago it ended, but it is about an hour long. I'm going to play it out, and I appreciate you guys watching, and you can catch us again tomorrow at 10 a.m.
Into the details of the shooting. That investigative report is sent to me for review, triggering a shoot review. If the discharge of the firearm was reasonable under the circumstances and under Florida criminal law, then the officer is cleared of any wrongdoing. If, on the other hand, the discharge of the firearm is not reasonable under Florida criminal law, then I assess the case's fitness for criminal prosecution and file the appropriate criminal charges. The purpose of this press conference is to present my findings regarding the shoot review of shots fired by law enforcement officers at the Pulse nightclub on June 12, 2016. While this process is standard in my office, this does stem from a tragedy that ended the lives of 49 people, wounded dozens more, and impacted our entire community due to the senseless act of a domestic terrorist. It is important to note that the scope of my office's involvement in the investigation is limited to 2 things. Number 1, a review of shots fired by law enforcement that night, and number 2, a determination of whether or not those shots were justified. All other details are outside the scope of my responsibilities as the state attorney. While a standard shoot review generally is based upon FDLE's investigation, here an investigation was also submitted to my office by the Federal Bureau of Investigation. It was submitted in May of 2018. Since that time, I, along with my Chief Assistant State Attorney, Deborah Barra, and my Chief Investigator, Eric Edwards, remain focused and determined to find answers. Ms. Barra was relentless, and I gave her the task of heading up that shoot review. By remaining in constant contact with me with updates and briefings, I developed full confidence in her work product. In just a few moments, I'm going to ask her to come forward and provide you with the details of that shoot review. But before that, I want to say to the survivors, and to all of you who have lost a loved one, we are still standing with you. And in this moment of solace and remembrance, I want you to know that you're not alone. I understand that so many of you who were injured are still healing, both physically and mentally. But I also want you to know that in this fight for public safety, you will never be forgotten. While there's no way to take away the pain and the devastation that has been imparted upon our community, it is my hope that sharing the results of this investigation will help survivors and the loved ones to find closure and answer any questions that they may have. They do deserve to have answers. Ms. Barra?
Hi, and thank you for being here. As the state attorney said, my job was essentially to look to see how many people, as far as members of law enforcement, fired their weapons, why they fired their weapons, and essentially where did those bullets go. And in order to find the answers to those questions, we could answer the ultimate question of, in the single moment where they decided to pull the trigger, were they justified in doing so? So in order to get that information, we reviewed the evidence that was available from the scene, from the witnesses, the video footage, ballistic reports, and specifically what we reviewed starting on May 17th of 2018 was a compilation of evidence that was provided to us. It included over 350 witness statements. It included police radio traffic, helicopter footage, dashboard footage, body camera footage, video footage from inside the club, ballistic reports, and 911 calls. And by taking all of that information, we established the facts of what happened on June 12th in 2016. We know that at that date, over 400 shots were fired. Those 400 shots, over 400 shots, were fired by 15 people. 14 of those individuals were law enforcement. There was obviously one person who was not a member of law enforcement. That person is the individual who murdered 49 people. That person is the person who attempted to murder hundreds of people. And that is the person who emotionally traumatized thousands of people in our community. I will be referring to that person as simply the shooter. I will not ever say his name. It is very clear to me that during this event, he wanted notoriety. He wanted people to know his name. And therefore, I will never play a part in that. And I ask you, members of the press, to also not play a part in that. I am going to start with the actions of the shooter, the facts that we developed in terms of what he did that night. And then I'm going to address the actions of law enforcement members who were there that night. So, these are the facts regarding the conduct of the shooter. Let me see if this is this on? That's okay.
Test, test, test.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So pertaining to the actions of the shooter, at 2:01 a.m., the shooter entered Pulse nightclub. He was armed with 2 firearms. One was an assault rifle, and one was a 9mm handgun. We know that as soon as he entered the club, he made a right-hand turn, and he walked through the main areas where the dancing was taking place of the club. When he was walking through, he was firing both weapons. He fired approximately and a minimum of 186 times from his assault rifle. He also fired a minimum of 22 times from his 9mm handgun. We know that as he walked the main areas of the dance floor, that he looped around and he came back towards this area of the club. And something significant happened at that point. What happened was that his assault rifle jammed. We know that his assault rifle jammed because there was a spent shell casing that was jammed in the weapon, and it required law enforcement to use a dowel in order to unjam it after they recovered his firearm. And that's significant because I believe that actually saved lives. He then continued on to the club into this area here, which is a small corridor where the only areas you can go is to the north or the south bathroom. He then entered the south bathroom and he fired his 9mm handgun. He then went to the north bathroom and continued to fire his handgun. He then went back to the south bathroom and he took his handgun and he fired over the bathroom stalls and under the bathroom stalls, shooting the people who were trying to get safety there. He then went back to the north bathroom and he remained there for approximately 3 hours. During this period of 3 hours, he did not fire an additional round. What he did do is he called 911 5 times. He mentioned during the calls that he had explosives in the parking lot. He also was on his phone and he was Googling how to spell the word allegiance. And he also tried to research how to unjam his firearm. Again, we know that he was not successful in figuring that out. Approximately 3 hours later, around 5:13 in the morning, he fires his handgun again. The evidence supports that what he did is he went and he was still in the north bathroom. He opened a stall door and he fired approximately 3 to 5 rounds. Now, the evidence supports that when he fired those rounds, he fired into people who were unfortunately already deceased. At that point, he then came out of the north bathroom, and there was a hole that was created by law enforcement that I'll talk about in a little bit. And he again took his 9mm firearm and fired a minimum of 2 shots. One shot hit an officer in the helmet, and another shot hit a survivor who had just been rescued from the south bathroom and was running this way, and it struck him in the back of his right calf. At that point, law enforcement returned fire, and he was eventually killed and pronounced dead at the scene. Those are the facts pertaining to the shooter. I'm now going to go through the facts determined for each law enforcement officer who fired their weapon. On this chart, you'll see some numbers 1 through 5, and those are the order in which the law enforcement engagements took place. We know that there were 5 separate engagements with law enforcement. And when I say engagements, I mean 5 separate occasions where law enforcement fired their firearms. We know that it was 5 based on the evidence. Listening to the interviews of the people who were there in the club and reviewing those interviews, we were specifically looking for any person who ever mentioned at any time that they believed law enforcement fired on them. We also listened to every single 911 call. And we did this because we wanted to make sure that in the background, we would be able to hear if there were shots being fired. And that was significant because we were able to develop a timeline in terms of when we believed the shots were being fired and when we believed that there shouldn't be any shots being fired. And as a result of that, of putting it together, we know that it is true that there were 5 separate engagements. I'm going to speak to you specifically about each engagement in the order in which they happened. So, the first engagement begins with an officer who was in the parking lot of the Pulse nightclub when the shots started happening. He's on scene and he hears what he believes to be gunshots. He hears that and he is moving with the gunshots because he can hear it from the outside of what's happening inside. He calls out on the radio that shots are fired, and he sees people exiting the nightclub, some of them severely injured, some of them deceased. He then moves to his position, to position number 1. And position number 1 is right in front of, these were double doors that were there, double exit doors. And what happens is when the people are exiting the nightclub, the doors open up, and he is able to see 2 people run out, and unfortunately those people were executed by the shooter who is standing inside here. He's able to partially see the shooter. He didn't have a very clear shot, but he could see the gun, he could see some body parts, and so he takes aim from his position at number 1, and he fires approximately 4 times. Now we know from the positioning that he was standing in and the level of these shots, and by comparing the video from what was happening inside and timing it, we believe that the majority of his shots hit the double doors. We also know that if the shots did not hit the double doors and they continued on, by reviewing the video evidence from inside, we know that nobody else was standing. Therefore, nobody else would have been in the path of his bullets. So I'm very confident to say that the evidence supports that absolutely no civilians were struck during this engagement. That's engagement number 1, 4 shots. Engagement number 2, that same officer is from this perspective, and he can look in and he can see that the shooter is moving east, and he's moving towards the patio area. So hearing and following the gunshots from the outside, the officer rotates around up to position number 2. When he gets to position number 2, it's a patio that's out there, and the patio gates open up. And he's able to see from the patio gates inside the club. And he's able to see the shooter who is still shooting at people inside. At that time, from his position at Orange Avenue, he shoots 3 times into the club at the shooter. Now, the evidence supports that, again, when he fired those rounds, that the shooter was the only person who was standing up at that time. We also were able to time it because when the shots were fired, there was actually a tablecloth that was located in here that we could actually see the projectiles moving the tablecloth as they went. And so we know somewhat of the trajectory of his shots. And viewing who was here, there was no civilians who would have been in that line of fire. So I can say confidently that there is absolutely no evidence to suggest that he struck any civilians at that time. And that completes engagement number 2. Again, the same officer, and he fired a total of 7 shots. Moving on to engagement number 3. Approximately 3 to 4 minutes later, there's a team of officers who are gathered, and they are gathered right out here. And they're listening, and as they get to right about here, they can hear shots being fired. The shots that they hear being fired are the shooter, based on the evidence, shooting his final shots in the south bathroom. They were 9mm shots that were being fired. And so when they're hearing this, they break the glass here, and they enter into this area. Now, they don't know at this time how many shooters there are. They're not sure what the description is. And so they have to clear the area that they're in, and when they're looking around here, making sure that it's safe, the shooting stops. They then move into this area because they know that the shots came from this side of the club. And they go and set up behind this bar, which is chute number 3. Now, at this point in time, they know that the shots have come from here. And so they are focused on the 2 doors in the north and the south bathroom. And they're anticipating that the shooter is going to reemerge. And what happens is the door to the south bathroom opens up. And there's an individual who is described as kind of crouching low and peeking around the corner. The officers who are behind the bar give him verbal commands. Show me your hands, show me your hands. And the individual doesn't comply. And so 2 officers from the position of number 3 fire their rifles in the direction of the south bathroom door at that person. 1 officer fired 1 time, and we know that that officer struck the mirror that was located right here. The other officer fired 3 times. Based on the evidence, we believe that his projectiles either hit a portion of the door because it was still slightly ajar, or hit the back wall. But we know for a fact that they did not hit the individual. And we know that because minutes later, that same individual, who's a civilian, comes out of the south bathroom. He complies with what they're saying, and the police are able to escort him safely out of the club. That is engagement number 3. Now, as I stated before, there was a period of approximately 3 hours where no shots were fired, and we're up to that point right now. So what's happening during this 3-hour period from a law enforcement standpoint is they are trying to rescue the civilians who are in both the north and the south bathrooms. And so what they're doing is they're punching holes in the concrete along this wall. The first hole that they punched, they were anticipating that it would be in the south bathroom because they knew at this point that the shooter was in the north bathroom and that there were people who were still in the south bathroom. So they attempted to put a hole in the south bathroom to get them out, but what they ended up doing is just being a little off, and they put a hole right at the end of the hallway. They realized that it was the hallway, so then they moved further down and started punching additional holes to get out the survivors. As they are just about finished with rescuing the people in the south bathroom, that is when they hear shots fired in the north bathroom. Upon hearing the shots fired, in less than 30 seconds, they throw what's called flash bombs. They're a distractionary device that looks like there's an explosion, or it is kind of an explosion, to basically draw out the shooter in the north bathroom. And it worked. The shooter then appeared in this area right here, the hole in the concrete. The shooter appeared and he was firing his 9mm handgun. Now, with the flashbangs, there's a lot of smoke that gets created, and so the officers were firing towards that muzzle flash. And at that point, 13 members of law enforcement fired their firearms. There were 10 officers from the Orlando Police Department and 3 deputy sheriffs. And combined, the 13 individuals fired a minimum of 172 times. When they fired towards that hole, they hit the shooter 7 times. The shooter fell backwards. Now, we know, based on the evidence, that they only hit the shooter. They did not hit any civilians at that time. And here's how we know that. The people who were remaining at this time inside the club that could be rescued, there were the people in the south bathroom, and when this shooting occurred, they were rescued. The individual who ended up getting shot in the calf, he was either the last person out of the bathroom or the second last person out of the bathroom. And so we know that those people were safe. So what we're really focused on are the survivors in the north bathroom, because we were looking to see, was there any way that out of those minimum, again, of 172 bullets, could they have possibly hit one of those individuals? And we know the answer to be that it did not. And we know that because one of the angles, the shooter popped out and he was essentially surrounded by concrete. And so the bullets were not going to penetrate that concrete. But supposing that they were able to angle their firearms towards the north bathroom. Well, what is unique about the north bathroom is you can see here, the door is here. And so if you were to enter into the north bathroom, you face a wall. And you have to turn right and then go left to get to where the stalls are. And the survivors were in the stalls. So from this angle, if you were to shoot, and let's just say a projectile went there, the wall was separating the survivors from the trajectory of the bullets. That wall we reviewed, and there were no markings from projectiles. This wall was clear. So it indicates to us that none of these bullets were able to reach the people who were there. In addition to that, we have the eyewitness statements of the individuals who were in the north bathroom and survived. And at no point does anybody ever say that anyone else was hit at that time. So based on the evidence, we believe that no civilians were hit in shoot number 4. And that brings us to shoot number 5, the final shoot that was done. What happens here is that as a result of shoot number 4, he goes down. Officer approaches him, and it appeared that on his person or close to his person was a device, potentially an explosive device, that it looked like there were wires that were extending out. And in addition to that, the manner in which the shooter was laid out, his handgun was about 1.5 inches, 2 inches away from his hand. So to ensure that he was no longer a threat, 1 bullet was fired into the shooter, and he was no longer a threat. Those are the 5 engagements by law enforcement. Each and every engagement, no civilians were struck, and each time the law enforcement officer pulled the trigger, it was reasonable and justifiable. Thank you.
Thanks, Deb. I've issued formal clearance letters for all of the officers who were involved, but I want to be clear today. After a review of shots fired by law enforcement officers on June 12, 2016 at the Pulse nightclub, all officers have been cleared of any wrongdoing. No casualties were the result of friendly fire, and my review has now been complete. While our review is narrow and the scope of it is extremely tight with regard to the things that we are engaging in and reviewing to close out this investigation, even with that narrow view, I'm going to allow Ms. Barrett to step forward and answer any specific questions you may have regarding the investigation.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
This is as extensive an investigation as I've ever covered. I'm just wondering if you have an estimate or guesstimate as to how many man hours and how many people worked on this investigation over the last couple of years.
Sure. So we actually, the FBI did an incredible job of collecting and preserving the evidence. On May 16th, I believe, it was either May 16th or May 17th, they issued their final ballistics report, and at that time we began looking at all of the evidence. It was myself and Chief Investigator Eric Edwards who did an incredible job on it. Yes, ma'am. Again, we are a neutral party. We're looking at the facts in terms of what happened that night. And it's really important to kind of take that out of it because you never want to be biased going into an investigation. And we made it a point of not researching anything, not looking at anything. There was a trial of his wife that I did not follow in any way because I didn't want anything to even unintentionally cross my mind as to what the facts were that took place. And so we were really just focused on the evidence at the scene. Yes, ma'am. We had to review it all. I would say that, the witness statements, we made sure that we had every witness statement of anybody who was present. That obviously takes a lot of time. And it was also important to review all of the 911 calls as well. And that took a lot of time as well. And then going through the ballistics and pairing up, we wanted to try to get as a specific count, an accurate count of exactly what took place and who fired what and when exactly as we could. So it was pretty extensive in delving into that.
So was this today the first time that victims and their families heard this information, or have you been in touch with them since May of last year to let them know, hey, initial report from the FBI says this information?
No, so prior to coming here, it was very important to us that we met with victims and gave them a preview of what we were going to say. And in fact, they are listening right now. And I want to say to the victims that I met with earlier this morning, I appreciate everything that you guys are doing, and I appreciate your attention this morning. And to those victims or loved ones of people who were victims at Pulse, if at any time you have questions about what took place, please reach out to our office. We are happy to answer whatever questions we can. Yes, sir.
I know you were focused on the movements of the gunmen and the law enforcement officers.
Yes, sir.
But was there any noteworthy movements of the patrons while they were inside the facility that was of interest?
Nothing that stands out, and it's probably because, again, our focus was a little bit different. I mean, there was a lot going on there, but no, there wasn't anything that stands out in my mind. Yes, ma'am. The autopsy reports were absolutely a part of the review, and there were no projectiles recovered from any of the victims that were traced back to any law enforcement firearms. Yes. I'm sorry? Oh, I'm sorry. So you're talking about the people who were injured. Yes, there's absolutely no evidence that anybody who was injured was shot by law enforcement. Yes, sir. Yeah. Yes. The shooter was down, and he was hit in the head. Yes. Yes, sir. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'll let her answer it. It is the end of the line. That's why I closed it out. At this point, if there were something that were criminal, we would proceed. There is absolutely nothing criminal on the conduct of anyone, so there is no criminal prosecution that will proceed. It is the end for us. No. It was part of law enforcement's original review that then is submitted to us to make our findings, our review of it. I've already talked to the sheriff. I've talked to all the agency heads, sent messages to them regarding the clearance of their officers before we met here today.
Yes, ma'am. I'm always open to have conversations with anyone. However, that's really not my expertise. Really the focus of this was to review what law enforcement gave us and to determine the facts based on the evidence. So, yes, ma'am. Sure. So anytime that a law enforcement officer fires their weapon in Orange or Osceola County, we do a shoot review. And so we do the same practice in terms of following the bullets. Now, obviously this one was a lot more extensive than typical, and I hate to use that word, there's really no such thing, I think, as a typical shooting. But yes, this was a lot more involved.
I'm just clarifying a couple of things so that it's clear. An investigation has to be submitted to us by an investigative body. So if there's a shooting that occurs in this community, our review doesn't get triggered until something is submitted to us that allows us to get that information and to review it. So other than that, we will.
Yes, ma'am. That's okay. Sure. Because of, so to answer your first question, I do not know the answer to that. No, that wasn't, and yeah, that was what I did. And your second question in terms of during that time, how many other people were rescued, that wasn't the focus of my investigation either. And so I know that rescues were happening, but I didn't, because I knew that law enforcement wasn't, I knew that at that time that wasn't engagements with law enforcement. Now, I reviewed all of those witness statements to make sure that, for example, if they were clearing out the people who hid upstairs, you know, when they were doing that, to make sure that when somebody kind of popped out or opened a door, that nobody fired upon them. And so we were very clear and confident that it was these 5 engagements, and then that's what we focused on.
Was that information in the FBI report, though, and is not part of the scope of the shoot review?
I don't know. I really can't speak to that, because what we were looking at was the evidence itself. Yes, ma'am. Again, that wasn't really my focus of what we were reviewing, and so I really can't speak to that. Yes, ma'am. That's a really good question. I never answered that. So what appears to have happened is during the commotion, it appears that an exit sign that was at the club actually fell on or about his person, and I believe it was actually touching him. And so when the officer walked up, and knowing that he had previously talked about bombs being present, and he saw wires and whatnot, it only takes that, for something terrible to happen. And so the officer made sure that that did not happen. Yes, ma'am. I really can't. And it doesn't, honestly, and I appreciate the question, I really do, but we were going to work until we figured out the answers, and it really wasn't anything that we were paying attention to as to how much time. No, we were doing that along with our regular responsibilities. Yes, sir. Well, I hate to speak on that because, yes, for me, it was emotional. I think as a human being, it's emotional, but I have absolutely nothing in terms of emotions compared to the people who are actually there and what they're going through. And I think, if in a very small way that this provides some answers to questions, then that's great. And I want people to understand that we're completely transparent with this, that, again, we're a neutral party who is trying to get to the facts. And if it brings even this much comfort to them to just kind of know what happened, then I think that would be a success. Yes, sir. We did not reach out to any other agencies. We did it completely. It was Eric Edwards and myself who were doing the review. And again, I'm open and willing to speaking with anybody who has any questions. Yes, ma'am. Yeah, and that's actually a good point. Let me clarify. I reviewed interviews. So I didn't personally go out and conduct all of those interviews. There are a few people that I absolutely needed to speak to, and so I did, but it was a lot of reviewing in its entirety in terms of all the information that we had. And I do know that yeah, I mean, obviously everybody is affected who is there, and I can't fathom what they're going through. Well, it's sad. I would never even try to understand what the perspective or what's the mindset of somebody who's been through this. And again, I honestly don't know if this provides anything to them. No matter what, they're not going to get their loved one back, and that is forever. And I'm so sorry to all of them that have to go through this. So I think it is all very sad. And we are also going to do a follow-up with the victims, and we're going to be available and answer whatever questions they may have. I can't. I mean, I can just tell you that the case is closed. But, I also think that whether you were a civilian or whether you're a member of law enforcement, this was impactful. And I think that, if I had to guess, I would say that members of law enforcement were just as impacted by seeing that and going through that, unfortunately. And so I just wish everybody the best. Thank you all very much.
Thank you guys for coming. I do have a press release. I've sent it out. Sorry. I do have a press release. I sent it out. If you did not receive it, I have hard copies as well. Okay? Thanks.
We'll give everybody like a minute to set up, okay, so that whoever wants to might be able to come over.